I'm Aubrey, and welcome back to Stars and Bars, where we analyze your favorite artists' astrological charts and interpret how astrology plays out in their music, lyrics, and career. If you're new here and that sounds interesting to you, I encourage you to hit that subscribe button so you never miss a video, and let me know in the comments who you want to learn about next. Our subject today revolutionized contemporary R&B, one teenage Tumblr user at a time, starting basically right at his career's onset in 2010. Known for his impressive falsetto compared to none other than Michael Jackson, his deep dark mystery in his sound, and his part in triggering the awakenings of most edgy and or artsy high school girls with an internet connection in the early 2010s. This artist will likely be forever remembered for his influence on especially the R&B world. He holds 3 Grammys, 8 Billboard Awards, 2 VMAs, 9 Juno Awards, and 1 nomination for an Academy Award, for a total of 82 wins and 222 nominations for awards at the time of recording. Today, of course, we are talking about The Weeknd. Here is The Weeknd's chart. Abel Makonnen Tesfaye was born February 16th, 1990 in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. We do not have his birth time, so we do not know his rising or house placements, but we do know he is an Aquarius sun with a Scorpio moon. His Mercury joins his sun in Aquarius, and his Venus and Mars are in Capricorn. From what we can tell, his dominant sign is likely Capricorn, his dominant planet is likely Pluto, and his dominant element Earth, but these things could change with more information on his birth time. He also appears to be totally fire deficient unless he has a fire rising. So before we really get started, I want to familiarize you with The Weeknd's discography. If you're already pretty clued in to The Weeknd's discography, or you just don't care about this part, you can skip to the time up on the screen. So the first project in The Weeknd's discography is called Trilogy, and it was released in 2012. As suggested by the title, Trilogy started off as 3 9-track mixtapes called House of Balloons, Thursday, and Echoes of Silence. And when he signed to Republic Records, he re-released them, plus 3 more tracks on this 30-song, 2-hour, and 40-minute project, on which we get a taste of Abel's signature, dark, mysterious, magnetic sound right out the gate. His high-pitched vocals contrast beautifully and strongly with the deep and dark tones of the music itself, which gives us big Michael Jackson energy for sure. Themes on this album include non-committal romance, sex, drugs, and escapism, a good combo of Abel's Aquarius and Scorpio traits. Moving forward, we have The Weeknd's debut album called Kissland from 2013. The dark and mysterious, sexy, atmospheric sounds continue on this album. Like I said before, Abel knows his sound from the beginning. There are more songs on this album that are slow than upbeat ones, and there is also an added element of larger-than-lifeness that is communicated through orchestral instruments, crescendos, things like that that really grab your attention and create a very dramatic sound. Themes include adjustment to fame, sex and drugs, and unhealthy romantic or sexual escapades. The toxicity in these relationships also come from both sides of the relationships in question. Abel describes both being non-committal as well as being with someone who's non-committal, and the effects that those things have on the people involved. Abel on this album provides some very Capricorn Venus commentary on modern relationships and how he feels they're inferior to traditional love. This makes this album give me more Capricorn energy than Scorpio energy, whereas the previous album was the other way around, because he's very straightforward about his detachment, which comes from being an Aquarius, and like I said, he's also criticizing modern relationship patterns and behaviors. Very traditional, very Capricorn energy. Next, we have Beauty Behind the Madness from 2015. This album is a slap. This album has some of The Weeknd's best songs, in my opinion, and many other people's opinions for sure. And it also has some of my favorite R&B songs ever as well. We see some branching out sonically, adding a little bit of bluesy and even sometimes waltzy sound, but it's still very true to form. We just have a little bit more experimentation. I also feel like this album has a lot more Michael Jackson influence to it than any of the others before it. Thematically, as Abel's fame increases and he becomes a whole superstar, he becomes very comfortable taking advantage of that and taking advantage of women. He's still very detached, but he is increasingly aware of the behavior that comes from that and its effect on the women in his life. We also see lots of self-destruction on this album, so there is a lot of Aquarius and Scorpio on this one, similar to Trilogy, I would say. Next, we have Starboy from 2016. This is The Weeknd's third album, and it shows the most experimentation so far. Vocally, Abel experiments with lower registers, and sonically, he ventures well into some electro-pop or EDM territory. We've even got 2 Daft Punk features on this album. He also makes some of his most modern-sounding pop rap and pop sounding songs on this album. We have features from people like Lana Del Rey, Future, and Kendrick Lamar. So The Weeknd's prominence also comes through a lot in the people that he's able to work with. Thematically, this album is the first to show a story unfold. We have lots of character development even, and a hopeful ending where we see The Weeknd start to show his inner yearning for a real, genuine love. These themes give me big Scorpio moon and Capricorn Venus energy, especially toward the end, but toward the beginning and middle we do see lots of that Aquarian detachment. Next, from 2018, we have My Dear Melancholy, and this is The Weeknd's first EP, and it is brief but very candid and emotional, and it's about his love life around that time. He details his relationships with Selena Gomez, who he dated for about 10 months in between bouts of dating Bella Hadid, and he is very forthcoming about his suffering during that time. It's interesting to see this window of their relationship because at the time Selena was going through a lot of health issues with her lupus diagnosis and her kidney transplant, but it sounds like there was a lot more, even more going on behind closed doors when it comes to the way that they were treating each other. And it's no question based on that why things didn't really work out in the long run for them. The deep emotionality of this project and its ballads and vulnerability screams Scorpio moon to me. And then most recently from 2020, we have After Hours. This is by far The Weeknd's most electronic sounding project yet. It feels very experimental because he doesn't deviate very much at all from the synthwave, electro pop, new wave genre, which is pretty different from what he has done in the past, although somewhat reminiscent of Starboy. Thematically, over the course of this album, we see Abel kind of drift back and forth between his old ways of womanizing and detaching from romantic relationships but still pursuing them, to kind of a codependency for an ex and expressing that what he truly wants is a real monogamous relationship rather than, the playful, lighthearted stuff that he had been involved in mostly before. And at the end, we see a lot of character development from the character that The Weeknd has built over the last decade when he says he doesn't want to keep using love and drugs to escape his inner turmoil. And this is really like the first time, I think this is the first time he really says that at all. Before that, I feel like he let us believe that this was the real him. And we are now seeing that it was more of a defense mechanism. So we see some obsession from that Scorpio moon, but also some clarity that feels very Aquarian and very Capricorn as well. So now that we've gone over the discography, we can talk a little bit more about the chart. All right, so let's start at the top with Abel's Sun and Mercury in Aquarius. The Sun is the planet of creativity and self-image, and Mercury is the planet of communication and logic. So that means that the Weeknd expresses things like creativity, self-image, communication, and logic. He deals with these things in an Aquarius way. So what is an Aquarius way? Aquarius is an air sign, meaning that they are detached, they are communicative. It's also a fixed sign, meaning they can be stuck in their ways. Aquarius is also ruled by Uranus, the planet of humanitarianism and unconventionality. So Aquarius traits include uniqueness, progressiveness, talkativeness, and the one I'd like to start by looking into, which is detachment. Most commonly, the Weeknd shows his detachment in romantic settings. So let's take a look at examples of that. So first of all, we have a song called Wicked Games from Trilogy, which starts off with, I left my girl back home, I don't love her no more, and she'll never fucking know that. So on this one, he shows that he has no shame in mistreating his girlfriend. And then moving forward, also on Trilogy, we have a song called The Birds Part 1, which has huge Aquarius energy. On verse 1, he says, if you try to play your luck, ain't nobody gonna care enough to catch you fall, which I don't love the way that he worded that, but that's okay. And then on the hook, he says, don't make me make you fall in love with a man like me, because girl, I'm just a bird. I'm just another bird. And in this case, he is talking about birds in a sense of their free flyingness and non-committalness. Part 2 of The Birds, the next track, gets more specific on just how heartless his actions get as a result of his detachedness. Next, we have Adaptation from Kissland, which is about Abel hastily giving up love for fame and almost regretting it, but just detaching instead because it hurts less. On the chorus, he says, I made a trade, gave up our days for a little fame. Now I'll never see your face, but it's okay, I adapted anyway. Now we have the smash hit The Hills from Beauty Behind the Madness. You've likely heard this song on the radio. It was #1, it was huge, and it's amazing. This song is fantastic. On the chorus, he sings, I only call you when it's 5:30, the only time that I'll be by your side, the only time I'd ever call you mine. So he's very straightforward that it'll never be deep with this woman. And then on Starboy, we have A Lonely Night, which is about detached Abel seducing the wrong type of woman, the type who does get attached. On verse 1, he says, why would you want to bring something between us? There's nothing between us. And then the chorus says, baby girl, I loved you on a lonely night. It was the only time. And if I led you on, then I apologize. So yeah. I think you get the point. But I do also want to reference one more song for this, which is called I Was Never There, and it's from My Dear Melancholy. It starts off with what makes a grown man cry, what makes him want to take his life. His happiness is never real, and mindless sex is how he feels. He heals. So this is about how depression can lead to detachment. So yeah, I think you get the point, and we can move on from the sun to the moon, which in the Weeknd's case is in Scorpio. The moon is the planet of your innermost emotions and instincts, and it's said to be kind of the you that you see, but other people don't tend to see unless they know you well. Now, Scorpio is a sensitive, emotional, intuitive water sign, and like Aquarius, it is a fixed sign and can be set in its ways as an archetype. Scorpio's modern ruler is Pluto, the planet of death, transformation, sex, and the underworld. So Scorpio is an intense, dark, secretive sign, and having the moon here can cause someone to struggle with intensely dark thoughts and lack trust in others. Abel's moon is also heavily aspected. It forms 9 aspects with other placements in his chart, so his influence is very strong, and this explains why his Scorpio moon energy comes through as much as it does, especially in his art. We'll go over what aspects are a little bit later in the video, so don't worry if you don't know what that means, we'll get there. Looking at Abel's chart and seeing his Aquarius sun and Mercury and his Capricorn placements, one might not expect the level of watery sensitivity we see from him, but the moon in Scorpio really fills that gap once you notice it. It also explains the intense sexuality that permeates so much of The Weeknd's music. For example, he was the artist chosen to make the songs for, I believe, both of the 50 Shades of Grey movies. I don't know a whole lot about those movies. Maybe there's more than 2. Maybe all I know is that he had several songs that were on that movie, and that movie, well, you probably already know. Anyways, the sex appeal of The Weeknd's work gets real graphic, real profane, and real explicit, and I really can't make an argument for family friendliness if I even start to scratch the surface of that. But some songs that contain examples of that, if you need to look into it, that come to mind right now are Often, Tell Your Friends, Initiation, Kissland, and there are plenty more, but there's some for you. But what we can talk about in relation to Scorpio traits in The Weeknd's music is his melancholy and sensitivity. We've already discussed that his sound is extremely dark and mysterious, and that obviously is fully explained by the Scorpio moon. So let's look at a couple of examples of that lyrically. So we talked about the song Wicked Games from Trilogy already, but another thing that he says on that song is on the pre-hook, where he says, "Bring your love, baby, I can bring my shame. Bring the drugs, baby, I can bring my pain. Just let me motherfucking love you." So he's using drugs and love to escape his hard thoughts, and this is a huge theme, especially on Trilogy. Also on Trilogy, we have a song called The Fall, where he says, "I ain't scared of the fall, I've felt the ground before." So Abel is no stranger to emotional pain, and is not afraid to experience it again. On Acquainted from Beauty Behind the Madness, Abel discusses feeling love for a change, when he usually isn't vulnerable, at least not for others to see. On the pre-chorus, he says, "You got me putting time in, nobody got me feeling this way." And then on the chorus, he says, "To say that we're in love is dangerous, but I'm so glad we're acquainted." And then on Die For You off Starboy, you've likely heard before, he says on the chorus, "Even though we're going through it and it makes you feel alone, just know that I would die for you. The distance and the time between us, it'll never change my mind." So we have top soft boy The Weeknd behavior on this one. Moving on from Scorpio moon, we've already talked about Aquarius Mercury, and we do not have a rising. So next we have Venus and Mars in Capricorn. Venus is the planet of romance, art, pleasure, and beauty, and Mars is the planet of sexuality, aggression, and energy output. And these two planets tend to be paired together as the love or relationship planets. And that makes sense. For most relationships, we have two big elements, right? We have love, softness, respect, romance, and then we have, sexuality, intimacy, things like that covered by Mars. And having these two planets in the same sign means that they have similar energies. So overall, The Weeknd's romantic persona is very Capricorn-like. Now, Capricorn is an earth sign, meaning it is stable, practical, and dependable. And it is a cardinal sign instead of a fixed one like we talked about earlier, meaning it is focused above all else on getting things done and moving forward. Capricorn is also ruled by Saturn, the planet of discipline and limitations. So overall, Capricorn is very responsible and practical and traditional. In Abel's case, this largely shapes his romantic attitudes. So while a lot of Abel's music would lead his audience to believe that he is wholly non-committal and uninterested in monogamy, other lyrics, especially recent ones, strongly suggest that this is a defense mechanism or a facade, also very Capricorn-like, and that he actually wants a real, stable, forever relationship. So here are some examples of that. So first of all, we have As You Are from Beauty Behind the Madness. On verse 1, he says, "It's just me and you. I believe in you. You're the only one I choose." And then on the chorus, he says, "Show me your broken heart and all your scars. Show me your broken parts and all your flaws. I'll take you as you are." And then on Starboy, a song called True Colors really speaks to this, where he says, "So if I love you, it just be for you. So when I'm touching you, can I trust in you?" This is really his first big reference to monogamy. And then we have Call Out My Name from My Dear Melancholy. On the pre-chorus, he says, "I put you on top. I claimed you so proud and openly. And when times were rough, I made sure I held you close to me." So this is really the first time we get concrete info on how he commits himself in relationships. And this is 8 years into his career as an R&B artist. And this is very unusual. R&B is often very tender. We don't really struggle to find these themes in R&B music for the most part. So the fact that he made it 8 years into his career without talking about it really speaks to his Scorpio secrecy, but also his just Capricorn, keep moving forwardness, if you know what I mean. On the chorus, he also says, "So call out my name. I want you to stay even though you don't want me." And then finally, we have After Hours. On verse 1, he says, "Without you, I can't sleep because my heart belongs to you. I'll risk it all for you. I want you next to me. This time, I'll never leave. I want to share babies. Talk to me. Without you, I can't breathe." And then on the chorus, he says, "Where are you now when I need you most? I'd give it all to hold you close. I'll treat you better than I did before. I'll hold you down and not let you go. This time I won't break your heart." So more very concrete examples of how he will be more committal moving forward, because that's what he truly wants. And as you can see, these things really increase as his career goes on. The last planet that I want to discuss is Jupiter, which Abel has at 0 degrees Cancer. Jupiter is the planet of luck, optimism, and philosophy, and its location in the chart can tell us how the native can bring luck and success into their life. Cancer is a water sign like Scorpio and a cardinal sign like Capricorn. So this sign is sensitive and intuitive, but also direct and action focused. Cancer is also ruled by the moon, the planet of emotions, motherhood, and instincts. So Cancer is also a very open-hearted sign. Whereas Scorpio, also a water sign, is much more reserved and less likely to let people in. Jupiter in Cancer shows that the Weeknd finds luck and success through emotional expression and open-heartedness. He also has this at 0 degrees, which is known as a critical degree, which means that this placement is at its purest and most actualized, powerful influence. It becomes a very, very big part of his chart, even though it's not as much of a personal planet because it's at 0 degrees. And this is very true, I would say. It's not that the Weeknd's more shallow music hasn't garnered him success, but it can't really be claimed that raw emotion hasn't played a huge role in his career and success. The last 4 out of his 6 projects, so Beauty Behind the Madness, Starboy, My Dear Melancholy, and After Hours, have all peaked at #1, and we've learned today that these albums are the much more emotional and vulnerable ones, whereas Trilogy and Kissland are not, and he also did not get as much success from them technically. My Dear Melancholy and After Hours are also very different sonically from the Weeknd's other music, so it's not likely that people visited these albums and revisited them just to hear the Weeknd things, if you will. They were obviously coming back to it at least, organically because of the content. Now moving on from planets, I just want to talk about aspects for a minute. We mentioned aspects earlier, and aspects are lines made on the chart from 2 planets being a certain amount of degrees away from each other. So these can be harmonious or inharmonious or a combination of both, depending on the amount of degrees apart. And looking at the aspects in Abel's chart, the first huge repeating theme is something that we've discussed quite a bit already, which is that the boy is soft and the boy wants love, and don't let him fool you otherwise. Some aspects that cause this include his moon conjunct Pluto aspect, Venus conjunct Mars, Venus conjunct Neptune, Mars conjunct Neptune, and Venus sextile Pluto. So yeah, that's a lot. And then, you know what else is interesting is that Abel also has Venus conjunct Saturn. Venus is the planet of romance and Saturn is the planet of limitations, as we discussed earlier. So this aspect can lead someone to have limitations or struggles when it comes to expressing their romance, which is very interesting because we've overproven at this time that this is a huge part of the Weeknd's chart, his music, his persona, his artistry, and his inner workings. So this just further solidifies that and really locks it in. We have come full circle. So thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, I would love it if you could hit that thumbs up button, the subscribe button, and also the bell button. Any of those you haven't hit yet. The first two are self-explanatory, and the bell will let you know when I release videos so that you are the first to check them out. And please, like I said earlier, let me know in the comments who you want to learn about next. I hope you have a lovely day and some happy holidays, and thank you so much.